Thinking about doing some metalwork today. I've started accumulating quite a number of aluminum cans. I've also got a little bit of a collection of aluminum trays from various holiday meals. And it's starting to pile up. That being said, I think I might want to start taking all of this and cutting it down into smaller compacted pieces. And that will involve some metal melting. You're probably wondering how I'm going to do that, and I will show you how. Here's my basic setup. Let me just go ahead and pull this out. Some time ago, the apartment next to me was being renovated, and they started throwing out a whole bunch of stuff, including the bathtub and this range hood. I picked this out of the trash can and cleaned it up a little bit. It was a little bit greasy and filthy. And as far as I know, everything still works. There's a light under there, as well as a fan. So how I retrofit this is I place this thing on top of some bricks, just that way I can get some airflow underneath it. I then turn on the fan, as you can see right there, which pushes air up into my, how do you say it? I guess furnace or foundry, which is sitting on top of this metal iron grate. I pulled this out of a barbecue grill. And what I use for a foundry is a paint can. Ideally, you want to use something that's a little bit higher melting temperature, and it turns out paint cans are made out of steel. Obviously, if I was trying to melt aluminum, I wouldn't want my furnace to be made out of aluminum. Otherwise, I would just kind of destroy the thing that's holding everything together. I've got my air source. It's blowing air upwards into a paint can, and inside there I've got a small little crucible that I usually choose to be a soup can. Now, for a long-term hobby of melting and casting, I would discourage you from using a soup can, even though it is made out of steel, and I'll show you why a little bit later. But for now, I found these to be, I found these to work, well enough for a little while. Once everything's up to temperature, what I plan on doing is just going through all my cans one by one, and then just feeding them into my crucible. I'll start collecting a sizable pool of aluminum, at which point I will then pour these into my homemade ingot trays. These are just more soup can steel that I've bent into small little squares. I've had some issues getting my bends correct because these are all warped, but I'm not really looking for anything pretty or gorgeous right now. I just want something that works, and as long as I can have all my aluminum into condensed little blocks that I can easily handle, that's all that really matters. One other thing is the cast, I don't know, you can say ingots or bricks, whatever, of aluminum. Once these are cast and formed, they are just small enough so that way I could, if I wanted to, reinsert them into my crucible and remelt them down. Now, here's what I meant when I said soup cans are not really the best choice for a crucible. What happens is you've got a lot of oxygen being force-fed into the furnace or the foundry and up and around the crucible itself. And as you probably know, oxygen plus steel or iron will typically give you iron oxide, which is rust. And at high temperatures, you start getting rust very quickly. Here is actually my last soup can for my last pour, and you can't really tell just by watching this video, but this is very soft. It almost feels like a paper cup, and I think I could probably put my finger right through it if I tried hard enough. In fact, during my last pour, I waited too long to pour before my crucible actually just failed, and I started leaking aluminum all throughout the inside of my paint can, and I ended up with this. Now, I kind of like it, even though it was a little bit of an accident, because you can still see a lot of the fine details of the charcoal briquettes. Plus, there's a little bit of interesting texture from all the ash and stuff, so I don't know if I'm really gonna melt this down again. I kind of like it, even though it was an accident, like I said. Now that I think of it, this was actually for my last pour, and I'm not sure when this one happened. I'm not even sure why I'm keeping it. Well, it made a good discussion piece just now, so there you go. I've started going through and compacting some of my aluminum that I'm planning on melting down. With the oxidation and the crucible failure in mind, I want to try to move as quickly as I can to get as much of this reduced as I can. I know that my crucible is going to fail at some point, but I don't know when that's going to be. So I might have as little as 30 minutes to try to get all of this reduced to a puddle. So I started compacting and making some of these different blocks as streamlined and efficient as I can, so that way they can I can just keep continuously feeding them into my crucible. I've also gone around and punched a small hole in the bottom of these aluminum cans, so that way whenever I feed the can into the crucible and it lands on top of a pool of liquid metal, there is some way for the trapped gas to vent out through. In case you're wondering why I haven't gone and started crushing all these cans, it's because I found that they actually fit much easier into the crucible in their original form. And if I want to crush them and try to reduce space, then it might actually be more difficult, and I have had trouble in the past putting a crushed can into this crucible. And with the time constraint and the pressure to do this quickly, I want to not have to fight anything or force anything into it. I just want to be able to take my can and then just drop it in and let it melt, let it do its thing while I go get another one. Let me just give you a quick walkthrough of my setup so far. First off, right here, that's going to be my camera mount, and you'll be looking up at the whole setup as I go. Back here, I've got my charcoal and lighter fluid. I'll get to that in just a moment. Right here, I've got my extension cord powering my range hood, which includes both fan and light. Right here, I've got my fire extinguisher. I've never really needed this in the past, but you never know. Besides, I think it helps keep the neighbors a little less anxious. Over here, I've got my tools and ingot trays and various other things that I use. And right here, we've got where the magic happens. I've got my paint can. I've got my crucible. The crucible is going to go in the paint can, surrounded by charcoal. I'll light it up. I'll start feeding oxygen into it, and things will get really red hot and glowy, and from that point I'll just start throwing metal in it. Oh, one more thing. In terms of safety, of course I've got my safety goggles, safety glasses, I've got some gloves, and I'm also wearing a cotton sweater. It is a little bit chilly out here. However, this is also for safety coverage, and if you are going to do things that involve heat and flame and whatever, I would encourage you to wear natural fibers and not synthetic. After all, you'd prefer this to start smoldering and burning instead of melting onto your skin. Let's hope that doesn't happen. My landlord just parked, and and I'm surprised he didn't come up to me and start asking questions. I'm okay with that. It's been maybe 5 minutes already, and things are still heating up. The crucible isn't glowing yet. I expect that to happen maybe the next 5 or 10 minutes. I've already burnt my glove, so that's... if you're not a big fan of safety practices, I would hopefully like to persuade you otherwise. So how's your day going? Okay, beautiful. I've got my crucible starting to glow, and now I need to start moving fast. I have no idea how long that crucible is going to last, so I gotta go. So here we go. It is working, see? Okay, the big stuff is almost melted. I've got little bits of slag right here in front of me. And then now I think I'm going to start moving on my cans. You probably don't want to breathe this. So far the can looks like it's about 1/3 full. I haven't scraped any slag off of it yet. But I'm kind of thinking that I should start pouring what I have so that way I don't lose anything. I've got a little slag scoop that I made out of a soup can lid, and I'm just gonna start scraping stuff. Okay, here we go. Okay, round 2. My crucible cooled down a little bit too much, so now I gotta wait for it to heat back up and start melting the rest of these cans. Wait, never mind, there it goes. Okay, I'm down to my last 6 cans. Now I'm down to my last 5. I don't see anything leaking yet. Hopefully we'll survive another 5 minutes. Okay, I'm almost ready for pour number 2. My square ingots seem to have the liquid stuck in them. I haven't fished them out yet. So I'm going to go ahead and have to try to use these small little tuna cans. I've never used these. I really hope they work. It worked, and that can is red hot right now. Here's what I got left. I probably should slam that out before it's stuck in there. I think it might be stuck in there. Oh well, I think I made pretty good progress for today. Overall, I think it was a nice catch, a nice collection. However, I can't really fully appreciate them just yet because, you know, they're gonna be hot for a while. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna start putting everything away. Here's what I ended up with. I've got my ingots right here. I've got a few scraps of slag, and over there are my tools. The round one turned out really well. Quite surprised. I did end up having to tear apart the can because it got a bit stuck. However, if you could somehow remove that lip on the inside, I think this would make just perfect little ingot molds. Well, that's pretty much all I got for today. See ya.